About this love. About this.
How you guys doing? You tuned into About This Love podcast with your host Dale and my beautiful wife Sherelle. Say what's up to the peoples.
What's up, people?
As always, be more, Baltimore, where you can always be more.
We're still working on that intro, so.
As many of you all know, this is probably around the holidays, so this may come out after the holidays. But one of the things me and my wife tend to do around the holidays, because I tend to take off around the holidays a lot than I don't normally do during the year, so we tend to watch a lot of movies. And on this year, I actually ordered the Tyler Perry, like a 28 movie Tyler Perry Blu-ray disc series, and we actually watched, which is basically 28 of Tyler Perry movies. And me and my wife kind of went back and watched quite a few of his movies. But yeah, we're kind of archaic. Yeah, I said Blu-ray. Y'all heard me correctly. I believe we mentioned it on a previous podcast as well. But yeah, we do still buy the Blu-ray, and we collect them. We do watch them whenever we have time, which isn't very often, and that's just around the holidays. But one of the movies that we actually kind of went back and watched and kind of had a different perspective of it was Why Did I Get Married? Both 1 and 2. And as we began to watch the movie, me and my wife kept pausing the movie and kind of having like dialogue. And I said, babe, this would make for great podcast conversation. And so I'm just kind of run through some of the things that I noticed in the movie, and you can kind of.
Well, hold on. Wait, for those of you who haven't seen the movie, you're just talking as if you assume that everybody
black says, why did I get married?
Not true. Or if you've seen it, like honestly, something that I said was just that how watching it, you watched it as a kid. We watched the plays. We watched the movie.
As a kid, a young adult.
Excuse me. I watched it as a kid. Like I watched the plays because they did have the Why Did I Get Married play.
I didn't watch any plays.
Yeah, so that was going on when I was like young. Not that I knew what was happening, but I did watch it as a kid.
I don't like plays.
Okay, well then.
Any plays.
But it wasn't that, I sat and watched it, but, as a family, it wasn't overly vulgar. So it was something to just put on and watch. Whether you understood it or not, we like the songs. You know what I'm saying? Like, we like the songs. So so I'm saying all that to say, watch it again. Like, whether.
Go back and revisit it.
Yeah, go back and revisit. If you're someone who has seen as a kid or a young adult and you now don't quite remember it, go back and watch it again and really analyze like what's happening like after this conversation, obviously.
Yeah.
But so give the premise to the Why Did I Get Married?
One of the things I want to add first as well, one of our friends, my god sister, her best friend, one of the things that she actually said, which I actually thought about, that's actually true. She said one of the reasons why she believed that Tyler Perry had blew up the way he did around with his movies and plays were because back then African Americans were not actually talking about things like that. Like in today's culture, like everything is mental health and talk to a therapist. But back when Tyler Perry was making those movies, that wasn't the case. And many people don't realize, even when you watch like Diary of a Mad Black Woman, Dia's Big Family Reunion, what was the other one that played together? When Tyler Perry released these movies, which like 2000s,
early 2000s,
a lot of this stuff wasn't conversation that Black people were having publicly, if at all. I mean, me and my wife even discussed how in my family, as I got older, we found out that there were that certain cousins that had children that we found out as we got older. So again, there was a lot of stuff that was going on, and I won't just say black families, but also in people's families in general, that wasn't really being touched. So Tyler Perry, a lot of these movies, when they came out, they were significant because they actually touched on, in the family dynamics, what that time was taboo, things you didn't touch. So back then, like, they were really like, oh my God, I can't believe he made a movie about that. Not that it was raunchy or anything, but it's like, back then, people didn't talk about having side kids or daughter having a kid that the mother raised as her own son. It's like back then,
even though we knew
those kind of conversations didn't really happen, So I just wanted to kind of say that was the significance of Tyler Perry's movies back then, I believe.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I mean, thinking about it now, about the time that came out, like, yeah, I definitely would agree. So I'm glad that it's out there to at least have the conversation to pull from, to, revisit, even though it might seem generalized, like some of the things. And as believers, definitely some of the issues aren't maybe our issues, but it's somebody's issue. And in everything, they get into the minutia, but the overarching theme that we had seen was just something, it was almost the same thing that we kept seeing in these movies, the same kind of one major thing. So you're going to give the premise of the movies?
As best I can with your help.
Bash.
What I will say is, so the premise of the movie is, in the movie, you have was it 4 couples
I think so. So really quick. So it's Tyler Perry and his wife,
and her husband?
and Janet and her husband,
It's not Jill Scott, is it?
Jill Scott,
Her husband,
and Mike. Oh, Sheila and Mike.
Sheila and Mike.
I can't believe I can't remember them. And then okay, Marcus and Angela.
Angela. So yeah, 4 couples. So 4 couples, and once a year they all go on a retreat, on a marriage. Well, I was not a marriage retreat, but just kind of retreat to kind of reconnect
with the college friends.
Yeah, because they're all college friends.
Yeah.
Each year they go on a vacation together to kind of reconnect. Because as you'll see, if you watch the movie, they all have very busy lives. They're professional in the corporate world. So they just kind of reconnect. And as they reconnect, one of the things you begin to see is just the different dynamics of each individual couple's marriage. So that's kind of the premise of the movie. So right now, I'll just go ahead and get to the nitty gritty.
Wait, what's the nitty gritty?
Just the dynamics in marriages.
Okay, so really quick, for my how I want to go about this conversation, are you going to you're going to break it down? Like break down each couple's
What I remember, yes, and you can add to whatever comes to you whenever I
Oh, bring each one up. Okay, thank you. Okay.
I'll start with Mike and Sheila, which is played by
Jill Scott.
Jill Scott. I don't know his name. You can go.
He's from The Wood.
Yeah,
some other movies.
I don't know.
I'm really good at actors' names, but it's but we still hadn't forgiven Mike.
What's Love Got to Do with It too? And Tina Turner's oldest son, Ike Jr.
Hey.
Yes. I watched it the other day.
No, I'm about to. I gotta look this up. Hold on.
Short on YouTube. He was like, I can beat him up, and he went to his mom's house. Tina Turner in the movie.
Really?
Yes. But anyways,
man. Okay, hold on. Really quick. His name is Richard T. Jones.
Yeah.
So Jill Scott and Richard T. Jones.
So Mike and Sheila in the the movie kind of opened up. I'm not sure of this specific scene, but one of the things in the movie is Sheila she's overweight. She's obese, and Mike, they're getting on the plane to kind of go meet everyone, and she was too big for the seat, so the flight attendant was like, "Ma'am, I guess unless you buy another ticket, you can't, fly on the plane." And so one of the dynamics of that couple is that he's very verbally abusive. He calls her names. He treats her like crap. And so basically, long story short, he stayed on the plane with his wife's friend and him, and they flew down to the retreat, and they made Sheila drive by herself to the whatever area. It was quite a few states in the movie. It shows her driving through quite a few states. So that's one thing. So he makes his wife drive. And this is also, she's driving through some states in the snow. We just actually had that. We actually drove this weekend. We came from Western Maryland. It was like a foot of snow when we left, and it was like 5 to 7 inches on the night the day we got there. It was snowing. It had snowed 5 to 7 inches. So we know about driving in the snow. It's not pretty. It doesn't feel safe.
And she didn't even have 4-wheel drive. Now that I think about it, that was so dangerous. And so she talking about something this mountain to save her marriage, which I mean, if you know, you know. But honestly, Mike was totally wrong for sending her knowing what type of vehicle they had up that mountain by herself.
I think it opens up an interesting another point that I feel like a lot of people don't kind of want to recognize, and this is both men and women, is I guess knowing when it's over. And I think for me, for somebody to treat their wife that way, it's like, so you're going to make your wife drive through 4 or 5 states by herself in the wintertime where there's snow. It's like, yeah, here's somebody that clearly doesn't care about their wife. And I think as a woman or as a man, at some point you have to be able to recognize that.
I think that's a good point, but hear me out. Because marriages go through rough patches, even in the first year, a couple can have an argument, being young. So you can have an argument and you feel like this is what's going to break us. Like, I think we're over. Because sometimes in the moment you cannot see, you just cannot see, or you don't want to see that it might just be we're pushing on and neither one of us want to keep doing this. But it's that fight in a marriage that you need to get to. And I think I said this in a previous podcast episode, where you have to get to a point in your marriage, you realize you are fighting the issue together and not each other. And I think it's hard to recognize that, well, is this over? Because listen to what she said. She didn't even see the signs. Like, maybe in her mind, she kept thinking about herself. And throughout the movie, she kept thinking about, had I lost this weight, I know that Mike, he would love me more. And as a wife, and hear me out, as a wife who suffers from chronic illness, it's, not that you have said anything to me to make me feel guilty about that, and not that I could do something about it for real, at this point in the matter, but, versus someone who has weight. But it's just there's something there that makes me unlovable. And in my mind, it might be like, sometimes it gets there where it's like, well, dang, maybe I can just do something different to make the situation better. maybe I can blah blah blah. So in that movie, Jill Scott had that
from the perspective of a man. Like the moment the flight attendant said, you can't fly on the airplane, like she drove through several states by herself in the wintertime. No man, and I know a lot of great men that love their wives. No man's gonna make their wife drive by herself in the wintertime. Anything could happen to her.
But
so it's like, hey,
yes,
no, babe, we're getting off the plane together, and we're gonna drive down.
But you were talking about a couple who probably, a woman, and they don't go into their backgrounds, which that would be a great movie if Tyler Perry really went into their backgrounds of why they're like the way that they are. But like, you don't know if she has seen men who actually love down their wives. And you know what I'm saying? Like, for that to be acceptable, because, you hear the term daddy's girls, or, no, I'm my father's daughter. And it's just like, well, that sets it, meaning that sets the bar. No, I'm not
because
trying.
Her friend, it's kind of like if you have a friend, like you're not able to go somewhere, but she gonna go with me in your place. That ain't going down never.
Hear me out. Yes, on the outside looking in, it's just like, oh, well, that doesn't even sound right. But the reason why you think that and you know that is because someone has sat down with you and told you that these things aren't okay. Prime example. So we had a couple on our podcast, Dana and Rose Thompson. And I remember when they came to our house in town to stay the night, and you had to go to work, right? You kept telling Dana, well, you know what? Sharon will be there. That's fine. And mind you, it was totally safe with Dana because you knew Dana for years. I've known Dana, and you have trusted him. Yeah, for years. And you trusted him knowing that nothing will happen or shady will go on. And what did Dana say to you? He said, nah, man of God, I'll wait until you come home to come and stay at your house. Not that you were saying that he could stay overnight while you weren't there, but it was just that I will arrive when you get there, man of God. Like, but that was someone who still sat down and kind of clued you in to the fact that's what I mean by like the behavior happens. This is every day. The behavior happens, but it's almost like until you see it and believe that it's people out there who do that, who protect their wives and care for them and would do anything for them. So mind you, they've been together since they were, I would assume, teenagers, because college. Yeah, so you're a teenager in college, for some part of college. Maybe he's always kind of been kind of rude to her, but in a joking, we good, we buddy way, right? I mean, but they did talk about the abuse that he put her through in their marriage in part 2 of the movie. And when I tell you, maybe she had not believed it. And maybe, she had parents or a mother or father who always put her down because of her weight. And, oh, you were lucky to get a man. And she probably just thought that seeds were planted to start believing that, in the same way that we want to plant seeds to believe that God is good and men can, be loving towards their wives and those things. So that's why I'm saying that.
Okay. I disagree, but for the sake of the podcast, we can move on.
We can agree to disagree.
The other couple I want to, and you know what? I'll start with Janet Jackson, who in the movie name is Patty, and her husband is it Garrett?
We can go with Garrett.
Yeah,
sure.
I forget his name.
Hold on, I got to put up on my phone the names of the cast. What was their name? Oh, don't say their name in this one.
Anyways, in the movie, Janet Jackson.
Gavin.
What did I say?
Garrett. It was close, just not it.
Gavin,
yeah.
So Gavin and Patty. In the movie, Patty who's played by Janet Jackson. She's actually I don't want to say she's a professor, but she does.
She is, or she's speaking.
But she goes into colleges. She wrote a book about relationships and marriage in the movie, and so a lot of her friends and the women who come on the retreat, they also read it as well because she's their friend. They want to support her. In the movie, one of the things that you see with her that really it plays out more
in part 2.
But she's very emotionally disconnected. Like, and they said it in the movie jokingly when they was like, Patty, nothing ever bothers you, nothing ever gets to you. And it's funny because in part 2, if you watch the movie or if you're familiar with the movie, it's actually not surprising that her character kind of explodes emotionally because she's been holding on to so much, however long the movie was from part 1 to part 2. Even before that, in the movie, however many years in the movie, she's very emotionally from her husband. And in the movie, what's sad, unfortunately, is that you see a man who loves his wife and just wants to be connected to her. I don't even think at this point it's a sexual thing. It's more so emotionally. I want to know how you feel. I want to be
Yeah.
connected to you. But the movie does kind of, it was the first movie, second movie alludes to their son getting killed, or
It was the first one.
okay,
It didn't allude. They talked about the son
yeah,
being killed.
the son
Yeah.
gets killed in an accident. Long story short, she was driving somewhere. She didn't buckle him in all the way, and he ends up dying in a car crash. Of course, she lives through it, so that's kind of something that haunts her as well. I think in the movie, I think that the reason why she feels disconnected is because she thinks that her husband blames her, and it comes out in the movie that he does, and I'll say in frustration, but I don't think it stopped him from loving his wife. But of course, in the movie, they never talk that out, which is why in the movie she's the way that she is. So I think that with that couple dynamics, one of the things that you see, even we see in real life, is that couples not actually having conversations about difficult things that happen or that transpire in our marriage, or we know people who they may commit adultery or something happened in marriage or relationship, and they never actually kind of talk through it. They just kind of like, I'm sorry, and kind of move on as if nothing happened, but there's never any real conversation about why that happened. And I think for like in the movie, that couple is kind of like synonymous with that. And you see again, if you progress to part two of why did they get married, you see the kind of the blow up that happens because of that kind of dynamic in their marriage.
The blow up that happens between Patty and Gavin.
Gavin, yes.
Well, I think you attributed that to committing adultery.
No, I'm saying that people that don't solve issues, that never address issues, they
There's
never
a big,
solve, or
yeah,
never resolve. Should I say not solved, but resolved?
yes, or at least put out there for to walk through together.
Because you and I know firsthand what happens in a marriage if you don't resolve issues. Like they ain't going nowhere. And
It just
honestly,
compounds another issue.
yes, the small things become big because it's like, well, we ain't resolved this small issue, and now I got a problem. The way you breathe, you breathing too loud, and that annoys me. It's like, well, they ain't you breathing too loud. Really, ain't the issue. It's the fact that we have an issue that we haven't dealt with, and we've gone through that beginning of our marriage, and
I
we
think a
really
lot of couples
really
go
have
through
had
that.
to learn how to resolve issue without yelling and screaming, but having conversations and talking and saying, hey, I'm not trying to attack you. I'm just saying when you do that, it makes me feel this way. And the other person having to receive that and really just sit there and listen and kind of hear and out from another person's perspective and not get angry or get defensive or get on the offense.
So I think with that couple in particular, what hurt me the most was that like there was a big scene, right, where everyone was being called out on their secrets, right? And that's kind of what we've been talking about
Messy
so
Mike
far.
too, yeah.
Messy Mike.
Mike in the movie, he was very messy.
Yeah, so like at the dinner table, there's this scene at the dinner table where, Mike is being called out about him kind of like fooling around with the supposed friend of the wife. Yeah, the supposed friend of the wife. And what I did not like was that in Gavin and Patty's situation, and particularly as a friend, Mike betrayed the confidence of Gavin.
Yeah, he did.
Gavin,
all of them.
Well, yeah, honestly, of all of them, yes, but of specifically,
I don't know why he was a part two.
he had a stake in their timeshare. They all bought a timeshare as friends together. I guess that's something that friends would do. Yeah, so they said in the beginning, why is he here? He has a stake in their timeshare. So yeah, that's what kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I was like, well, dang. I went to you and this is something that hurts. But we've all heard the saying hurt people, where, Mike is kind of embarrassed by the situation. There's a stranger at the table as well. And also he's being put on the spot. And it's like, well, I'm being put on the spot. Let me put y'all on the spot with your things. And I think that's what kind of made me really upset for them. But I know it's a movie deal and you always get on me about this, but let's say this was a real life couple. I would just wish and hope and pray that in that moment, that would be the catalyst for that couple to it blew up like that because they don't talk about anything, to your point.
Yes.
They did not have these discussions. And I'm just kind of like, man, yes, he confided in what he considered to be a good friend. But, I just really wish that he would have then eventually went to tell his wife and not draw them apart. But like you said, if you're not talking about all these other little things, when something big comes up, that could break you.
I do want to add, I do think that is a very sensitive subject.
Absolutely.
The loss of a child, it was a young child at that. That's a very sensitive subject. And I think in the movie, part two, she actually goes to say that she blames herself as well. But I think that one of the things that can do is that I think oftentimes in marriages and relationships, yes, there are things that have happened and I blame my wife. Does that mean I don't love my wife? Of course not. I do. I still love my wife, but it's like that doesn't mean I don't blame you. And even sometimes you can blame a person but and be wrong, and I think that it's fine in the sense that you have that liberty to be able to do so, but we still have to come to the table and talk about it, and then you can see the error of your ways or vice versa. But I feel like because they never came, I feel like Patty was dealing with a lot. She was dealing with the loss of her child, so there's grief. She was blaming herself for the loss of her child. That's just internal torment. Or to believe that I'm the reason that my child lost their life. That's a lot to have to handle. That can drive anybody crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, and I think I was like, yeah, that's tough. And I think that's just one aspect of it. And I think that from that aspect, that probably made her pull away from her husband because she thought, yeah, you blame me, I blame me, you hate me, I hate me. But
Yeah.
the interesting was that wasn't the case at all. He didn't hate her. He didn't blame her. I think initially, when it first happened, those emotions kind of come up. But I think after the fact, you realize, oh, it was just an accident. Unfortunately, it's an accident that we can't take back. What's happened has happened. Because I think in the movie, he actually wanted another child, right?
Yeah. I don't know if they say. I don't know if they say that.
Maybe I'm confusing other.
Yeah.
Okay,
I
but
don't know if they say. I mean, I will say in part 2, he was blindsided. So you're absolutely right. He did want to continue on the marriage though, but he was blindsided by that. Because it's so crazy. In part 2, I did not realize that he was blindsided by their divorce. I thought they both came out and said it, but that's why you go back and watch a thing and revisit it. And you know what?
How could they both talk about it? How could he have known they don't talk about nothing?
Well, no, I just thought they did when she made the announcement. You know what I'm saying? When she said, we love each other very much. And so then later during the divorce proceedings, they talked about, or he said, I didn't know that you were announcing to our friends that we were getting a divorce. And so, I just thought that maybe they had talked about it. But as we're wrapping up this conversation, I do want to say it's really nice to have that. Like you said, Tyler Perry put that out there. These are conversations that weren't really addressed or talked about in our communities. And so it's nice to kind of have that to look at, because it's almost like if you are someone or a couple who you might not be able to relate to everything that the couple's going through, but you can identify like, yeah, I've been there in this type of moment, or we've had that moment, So I think it's nice to sit back and watch it and really analyze, like, do I do that? Or what do they do? And, oh, I can see how that happens. And, something that I was told as a young wife was that you and your husband, like if you were to be with anybody else or he was to be with someone else, it would never be the same. But I think the way that we handle things, because we are who we are, we may handle it the same way with a different person.
Yeah.
So if you were to think that like it's not working with this person, well, I'm gonna go off and be with someone else and it'll be better because they're different.
And also too, like one of the things I want to add is that like one of the most beautiful things about God and one of the most beautiful things about having people that love you and people that actually like want to see you succeed in your marriage is that like I remember early on, those that know me know like I yell a lot. It's not even like not even anything like malicious. Even like when I was at work, they were like, "Man, you gotta yell so much." I'm like, "This is how I talk." Kind of like the Dave Chappelle Samuel L. Jackson skit. Ain't you ever seen it in my movies? But
what?
It was a Dave Chappelle should do skits with Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, I understand.
But that's like, this is how I talk. He's like, why are you yelling for? He's like, ain't you ever seen it in my movies? I'll show you after the podcast. Okay. But anyways, one of the things that like who actually said had pulled me aside when they were outside. He said, Dale, if your wife says that you're yelling to her, then you're yelling. And he said he was so firm. I was like, oh, okay. And basically he was saying like, Dale, I hear what you're saying. You're not being malicious. You feel that you're not being rude. But if your wife says you're yelling, stop. One of the things that I realized about watching movies like Why Did I Get Married, and it's like you may come from a background where you don't know how to be a husband, you don't know how to be a wife. But what you do know is where you came from. And what you do know is that where you come from, things don't work out. Mom and dad wasn't married. Mommy wasn't married. Daddy was a womanizer. Mommy was a woman that slept with different men and had different men coming in a household. So if there's one thing that you do know is that don't work. That don't work. So I can't do that. I don't know how to be a good leader, a good husband, a good wife, but I know that don't work. So you can't do that because that doesn't work. And I feel like coming to the realization that marriage is that like, yo, that don't work. My mom did that. My dad did that. It don't work. My mom and dad yelled. My mom and dad fought. They were very nasty with each other verbally. That don't work. So I can't do that. I don't know how to produce a good. I may not know how to produce a good marriage, but I know that don't work. So I feel like one of the things that I appreciate about these movies is that like being able to identify with the couple the things that are detestable, despicable, insulting, flat out not right, and say, you know what? I don't know what to do, but I know that ain't right. That ain't it. And so that's what I appreciate about the movies is that being able to say, hey, that's not it. You know what I'm saying? Letting my wife drive across 4 states in the wintertime, that's not it. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I wanted to add.
Well, yeah, and that was the point I was trying to make earlier. Like, until you see it, we had to come back all the way here for you to get it. But no,
I don't think you have to see those, Sherelle, to a certain point. But we just discussed that on part 2.
You say you don't have to see? What do you mean?
What I'm saying is that, like, if I grew up in a culture where my father slept with different women, he was a womanizer. My mother had different men out of the house. I don't need to actually. What I'm saying is that I can look at that and say that whatever my mom and dad was doing, it doesn't produce anything fruitful. So at the very least, I'm able to recognize that don't work.
Okay,
that's what I'm saying.
But in specific situations, I don't think your dad has also had your mom driving 4 states over to go up the mountain to save her marriage. Like, and while he's sleeping with somebody else.
Their marriage?
Well, yeah, save their marriage while he's sleeping with somebody else. So, no, I'm saying have you to do it. Or, yeah, that's what we're saying. But either way, I do understand what you're saying. I do get it. And like I said earlier, we can agree to disagree. We just have different thoughts on the matter. Yeah, cool. We just have different thoughts on the matter.
That's why I love you. That's why you're my little honey duck. Honey duck.
Honey duck.
It's something I made up.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
But thank you guys for joining us on this podcast. We will continue the conversation on Why Did I Get Married, the other 2 couples on part 2. It may be a long series. I mean, it's a lot of time. And she long-winded, she don't know when to, sometimes she just keep going and she don't know when to stop, so we have to say, hey, time out, stop.
You know what? If you don't see me on part 2, y'all know why, okay?
So thank you guys for joining this conversation. We hope you found it beneficial. You can find our podcast anywhere where podcasts can be found. We'll leave the link in the description to all our social medias and things of that nature. So until next time, peace.
Peace.
About this love.